morning, everybody. Welcome to Solutions with Aquarius Rising Africa. And I am so delighted to have with me again my tiny little brother, Alan, all the way from Aussie, and of course our regular Mornay. How are you guys today? I'm blessed to be with two handsome guys. Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on again, guys. Really do appreciate that. So yeah, looking forward to having a little chat.
Yeah. Last time we spoke, you kind of we went sort of more into your beginnings, where it began, and just kind of like what you've been doing over time and what have you. So you also, I mean, I know a strong drive for you is to be environmentally conscious, which is why you create the art you do. Basically, I know what you've termed it vintage trash. So basically taking someone else's trash and turning it into a beautiful creation that is really a treasure for another person. So you really have a gift for that. And I think it's such a cool time to be exposing this type of thing, because really, as we're moving into new areas in life and, things are changing, and we really do need to be conscious of how we treat our environment. So good to see someone like you creating the pieces that you do. So maybe you want to tell us a little bit more about that. And I see you in your workshop today, and I can see some of your pieces behind you. That's cool.
Yeah, I am in my studio. Thanks, sister. Yes, thank you very much. Great introduction. Yeah, I've just found myself, as a visual artist, kind of bouncing between ideas when I was still establishing myself, and couldn't really. Yes.
I want to define visual artist. I mean, I can think in my mind what it is, but how would you describe what a visual artist is?
Okay, well, a visual artist really is like you have a performing artist, you have the performing arts, you have many different types of art or disciplines, let's call them. A visual artist is really someone who does painting, sculpture, functional artworks. So it's basically, we'll call it still arts, really. That's really what a visual artist is someone who creates artworks that are not themselves, I suppose, moving. Like dance would be another form of art. So really, that's what we refer to as a visual artist.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, so where were we? Okay, you were saying I'm in the studio. Yes, I'm in the studio. So behind me, a couple of pieces I recently finished. And you just wanted to go back to my work as I suppose my passion for being
creating,
an artist who loves the environment. So there's really two sides to what I love to do as an artist. The cockatoos are screaming out there, and they're actually talking over me. So that's where I am. My environment is right in amongst the trees. It's quite incredible. It's really, really beautiful. So the two sides to what I do, one is I myself quietly do a lot of environmental things, like having a shorter shower, for example, simple things, having a cold instead of a hot shower. It's good for my health to expose myself to the cold, because your immune system absolutely loves anything that's uncomfortable. So if you're constantly seeking comfort, in my view, you're doing yourself a disfavor. So my son Josh is here as well. I'd love to introduce you to him at some point. He had a football game this morning in AFL, as in Australian rules, which most people around the world don't understand, but it's an absolutely wonderful game to watch. It's fast-paced, it's exciting. Yes, their shorts are a bit tight, but you can't judge them for everything. So, but it is a wonderful game.
There's the shorts underneath their armpits.
You love AFL for looking at the gorgeous men, don't you?
I like the shorts all the way up to under their armpits. Let's face facts. That's not very attractive.
It is an absolutely beautiful game, and I've really got to love it. So my brother-in-law Jeff has taught me a lot about the game, and Josh has taken to it like a fish to water. He just loves the game. He's a great little player, beautiful defense player, tough as nails. So yeah, really what I'm saying is that exposure to cold. He was in a freezing, the rain was coming in sideways, and he was standing there in his vest and his shorts and absolutely frozen. And I'm encouraging him to just move around, but thinking to myself that he's right where he needs to be right now. I'm sure he wasn't thinking that himself because he was absolutely frozen. But it's so good for one to be exposed to areas of discomfort. So yeah. So and that goes going back to me as an environmental I suppose artist who loves the environment. It's just wonderful to be able to do the right thing, but also have health benefits as well. So yeah, so as I said, going back to that short shower, the cold shower, whatever you can call it. So I'm really on an everyday, on an ongoing basis, just doing stuff that's good for the environment. So without advertising that sort of stuff, I just do what I think is the right thing. Okay, so there's that side of it, and that then leads into my work as an artist. So it just became such a yearning for me to produce art from the right type of materials. For example, my recycled, found objects, you can call it what you will. And now what I've coined, my little phrase I've coined is vintage trash. I just love finding stuff. The more there's a story attached to my components, the better. I keep getting phone calls and messages from people saying, "Oh, have you got you know, space in your studio for a few pieces of rusty metal, old tools?" I'm going, bring it on. I'll come and see you, and I'll take away most of it. So I'm a little bit picky, but not that picky. If it can go into a future sculpture, I do. And then some of the stuff, you come across a couple of gems, and this was on one of my Instagram posts recently, and it's attracted like 3,000 views or something like that. Maybe not as much, but close to that. It's a simple little tool that's a German-made tool that was completely rusted up. I just polished it up and given it some oil, and there it is. I actually use it now. It's a beautiful snipper. It snips a wire snipper. So it's German made. It is vintage. I've looked it up, and it's worth a few dollars. But I'm going, this is great. I love it. It's now in my studio. So little things like that, and then there's the meaning behind that as well. I found that, you know, literally found it in the trash, and it's now become a piece of work. You know, helps me produce my work that I do in my studio. So and then some of those bits and pieces go into artworks. Yes,
I would love to just add something here, which I think is so incredible. I was listening to a podcast by Thich Nhat Hanh not too long ago, and he recently passed away, but he was that Vietnamese monk. But wow, what a beautiful soul! And he said something, and he says, look at a piece of blank paper. Person will see, you know, the average person looking at a piece of blank paper will just see blank paper. He said, me, I see the tree from which the paper came. I see the sun that shone on the tree in order for it to grow. I see the clouds and the rain that created the atmosphere in order for it to flourish. I see the lumberjack who chopped down the tree. I see his father. I see his ancestors. I see his wife who fed him so that he could be and his mother that nurtured him so that he could become a man in order to chop down the tree. Wow. You know, when we start looking at things like that, that is what gives us the layered meanings in life. So when you know,
layered meanings, I love it. Yeah. Layered meanings, fantastic.
Yeah. So it's like that object you have now, for someone who doesn't appreciate the value and essence, because to me that is essence. And I think that's a big part of the problem in the world we're living in. I mean, Alan, if you just go back to our days on the farm, I mean, we were riding mom and dad's bicycles that they rode when they were kids, right? We never got
Yes,
bicycles.
yes,
I remember we had a very big three-wheeler or tricycle that we all rode. I think Anita got that, our older sister. We all rode
yes,
it.
I remember it too.
Our bicycles were our parents' bicycles, and I was always complaining because the tires were always flat. I wanted my own bicycle. I remember that. I never got it. But my point is that
Oh, yeah.
nowadays, you'll never find the way a bicycle's made unless you're paying thousands and thousands with that quality. So the old things had
Yes,
quality, they had purpose. Nowadays, the things are made for the quick fix market. And I think what
yeah,
really is so important is that we go back to that essence and really appreciate. I mean, I'm just looking at those pieces in your, and sitting in your back, in the back, in your background there. I mean, it's like, I would
yeah,
love to know the story of the wing. Where did that piece of steel come from? You know what I'm saying? So it just gives things such a beautiful essence when we start looking in a layered way. And the same thing, I mean, if you just take the cushion now, you know, it's beautiful. It's
yes.
fabric. It comes from India. I mean, it's beautifully embroidered. So I would love to know, is that a man or a woman that did it? You know, feels like a lady
Yes,
to me. You know what I'm saying? So
yes.
it just brings in, it creates life, brings life into everything. And that I think is what you do. What I see is like you give life. Your art is life. It's alive.
That actually is a wonderful segue. And let's not talk about that single wheeler of yours again. What do you call that thing?
Willy.
Hey,
It's not a
your
segue.
brother,
It's not a
your brother
segue, but
calls
this
it,
is a segue. Your uni wheel. What is?
your brother
Oh my
calls
God,
it,
that
your brother,
uni wheel has got some mileage behind it. your
I
your
love it.
COVID. What is it? Your your COVID defiance.
Yeah.
Lockdown defiance.
I got it when just when lockdown happened, and I was whizzing around. And here in South Africa, we were only allowed to go for walks and exercise. Me at like some ungodly hour, at like 5, 7 in the morning or something. It is freezing cold winter. Me, boy, I get on my wheelie because there was a question mark as to whether it's exercise or not. So I was like whizzing it. Of course, every time I drive past the cop, they like look at me and I go, all right.
Yeah,
I go,
that's it. I'm gone. Catch me if you can. All right. So the segue that you talked about is, it's just, I absolutely love the environmental side, the quiet me that's not so quiet, just doing the right thing, and then finding the right materials and components, vintage trash, and then going into telling a story through, without using words, as in producing artworks from those particular components from somebody's estate. The old man was a hoarder, and he just refused to relinquish any of those components. Eventually, somehow, after he's passed, his widow and his daughter approached me and go, would you like some of these beautiful pieces that he thinks are beautiful? And I think are beautiful. I'm going, yes, please. That goes into my story now. So anywhere I try and record where I get the bits and pieces from, I put them in a sack or in a drum all together, and I know which family or which part of the country that piece comes from. Like I mentioned the drum before. So then that goes into my story, which becomes obviously an artwork, like the two pieces you see behind me. So the cockatoo over there is basically the timber. The body is from the caves where I used to work, and it's all offcuts from. Actually, that comes from the lighthouse. They built a deck, so it's actually new timber, but it's still an offcut from a historic building. And that's got shaped into the body. And the wings are from an old oil drum. I sold my car And the guy was going to give us a ridiculous price. He quoted us $200 for this car that's still running, really. And it was already ridiculously cheap, you know. And then we get there and he says, I'll give you 50. We're going, well, you said 200. He knows you're already there. So I'm going, that's ridiculous. So I start looking around. I said, mate, I'll do you a deal if I can have that piece of trash, that rubbish there, that old drum there, that sheet of steel there. Then we got a deal. And to me, that stuff's far more valuable than the car. I got $300 worth of steel off him, and he didn't care. But I've got steel now that's got into a sculpture. So that tiny piece will give me more than what I paid for the car. So that's a sort of, I'm a real forager. I'll tell you what, I love foraging, food and components. I just think it's so satisfying and so meaningful. That layered meaning you talk about, I love that. I'm going to start using that term. That's for sure. I've stolen that term off you. So the layered meaning makes my life richer, and doesn't need to be richer for anyone else, but it's for me. Yes.
Exactly. And that shines through in the essence of your art. I just had a great idea when you mentioned that, let's say the old guy had passed away and he was a hoarder, and then afterwards the family came to you and wanted to get rid of some of his stuff. Imagine that they came to you and said, you know, this is some of his valuable stuff. We don't know what to do with it, but we'd really like to keep it as a memento or do something. And you could create a piece from that art, from the left, like the stuff. And I just think that'd be a wonderful way of remembering someone, using some old
honoring him.
Yes, and then have the family use that as the recycle. But I mean, I think that would be a wonderful way for people to even do that. And you know, use things. Get someone like yourself to recreate old things from maybe people that don't see value in it, but you create it into something new and something different, something like your birds in the background. I think that's amazing. I think that'd be a wonderful way of people also.
That is a great idea. I've done that in a roundabout way with this particular family I'm talking about. So when I did the Origins Market in Bustleton, so one can look it up, I did all the artworks around the building. I was commissioned to do the artworks, and every single component is recycled, everything. And a lot of that, the pieces from that family went into the Origins Market project. Because they're from Bustleton, they proudly go past there every time, knowing that that was dad's stuff, you know. And she's happy. She's so happy that I've told her that where the bits and pieces have gone. Like the little piece in the bike rack, which I made, it's like sedges, like reeds growing up, and then you slot your bike in amongst the reeds, in between each of the reeds, and it's got a little slot for the bike wheel. Those bits and pieces went into those pieces, and I explained to her where they all were, and she just loved the idea. She just loved that. So that's a legacy that her dad has left through me. You know, it's just wonderful. So you've nailed it.
That's exactly the word I was looking for, legacy. They leave it, so that's like leaving a legacy behind. So you recreate. That's amazing. I mean, that I think would be something very beautiful.
Yeah, and then when you talk legacy, you talk about that message I'm passing on to my own children, for example. Just that simple thing. I talked about having short showers. Josh is famous for switching lights off behind people in the house. He can't stand that wastage. He wants to conserve energy. Bring that one. So he'll run around behind Michelle and Samantha turning off lights. This is him here. So he's a great drawer, by the way. So he'll show you one of his drawings. This is Joshua.
Hi, Joshua.
Down on my knee.
Yeah.
Okay, so Josh is going to show you one of his pieces. Hold it up slowly and hold it up slowly towards the camera. Can you tilt it towards the light? Can you guys see that at all?
Ooh, flash.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Very good.
That is so cool, Josh. Wow.
Nice.
Good work, Chan.
Thanks.
So that legacy
cool.
you leave, stay here. That legacy you leave is a wonderful thing. I mean, this is, you know, his first ever artwork. We know who owns that. And that was also 100% recycled.
I have to go fetch it. Guys, I have to tell you, this is Josh's first, it's Is it an ugfish,
Stonefish.
Alan?
Ugfish,
Stonefish.
yeah.
Okay, he made it. That was his first piece, and this was what, 2-3 years ago, Josh? I
3
bought it
years,
from him.
3
Yeah,
years
yeah.
easily.
It
Three,
was,
maybe.
it was about that long.
Yeah, it was 8.
And do
Yeah.
you want to tell? Do you
Just
want
bring
to
it
tell
closer.
everyone, Alan, what this was made from? There you
Joshua.
go. Look at it. Sort of
Yeah,
vintage fish.
Yeah, well, we basically found a piece of timber in the forest, I think. And then we shaped it, and Dad cut out all the steel, and we basically glued it in, and we gave it a nice burn with the blowtorch and put the teeth in, and yeah, it was really fun to do.
It's very
There
cool.
you go. So the whole ugfish, yeah, sorry,
I have
the
to say,
ugfish
this fish-
series is really, sorry, Shanti, you talk.
That's okay. Okay, I just wanted to say this fish now has prized position in my office.
Fantastic,
Very cool.
fantastic. So we have another resident in the studio, and that's Jessie. Come forward.
Say hello.
Hello, Jay. Hello, JC. I love it.
Oh, she's gorgeous. She's our gorgeous little border collie. She's amazing. Loves to run. Yeah.
Very good.
Very cool.
Loves to run, loves to be busy. Yeah, and just comes to the studio with me most days when I come to the studio. So almost every day, that is, when I do get to the studio, yeah.
That's so cool.
So yes, that handing down of that philosophy of being a responsible person, really. That's really what it boils down to. I received that from our mother. She is very much like that. She was a war baby, so she would have been, even more so when her dad got back from the war. Obviously, he was starved to death just about. He was skin and bone. And that's Joshua, where Joshua got his name from his great grandfather, Joshua Allen Meyburgh, Allen Cadle. That was mum's side of the family. So she's passed a lot of that frugality, that don't waste mentality onto me, and I love it. I think it's just wonderful when you can actually really thoughtfully produce something. I mean, I love doing preserves and all sorts. I've just been running around the district giving out olives to some friends who I think deserve them, and I do a special sort of pickled olive blend, which people seem to love. Just little things like that, instead of going to the shops and buying a jar of olives, I've actually gone and made them for these people, and they love them. A lot of my friends are very much into that as well. They grow their own food and so on. So yeah, we are a little bit hippie-ish down in the Southwest, but that adds to life. I really believe it adds to the meaning, the true meaning of being who you are and what you do. And if it takes 20 hours to
And that's what the
pickle
hippies
those
do,
jars of olives,
Yeah, that's what the hippies do. They live in connected with the earth, which is a good thing.
oh, I love it. The old Peruvian saying of Pachamama, where they're so connected with the earth, they're so connected with their origin. It's quite incredible. Where they go to a new area in Peru, they'll kiss some ground. They'll pick up a handful of dirt and kiss it. They pick up those microbes. They pick up that I suppose that immune system picks up those microbes and makes them stronger. But at the same time, they have a real belief that Mother Earth is there to care for them, and they kind of respecting that part of the land that they've traveled to. Those sort of things just tickle my fancy big time.
Yeah,
there's
a lot of, we're also dealing with a lot of the ancient cultures at the moment as well. And what I'm really enjoying, which I think goes very much in line with your beliefs and also definitely what you're doing, is the resurrection of a lot of the ancient knowledge. I mean, we've had Bruce Shillingsworth from Australia on the show twice now already. He's the son of one of the elders of the, I can't say the name of the tribe, but the Buruiji or something.
Yes.
But it's amazing, they talk about the original people's law of the land, LORE, versus the Western LAW, law of the land. So, they are fighting for that could come back in Australia in an amazing way.
Oh, very
It's
much so.
beautiful, you know, when you start understanding that culture. And it's the same, it's so much in line. And we had a joint interview with him and Rasul Snyman, who's the descendant of the Khoisan in South Africa. And you see how similar their understanding is. And, you know, one of my friends as well, you know, she's from the Cherokee tribe. And you just see, you know, in the essence of the energies, how the ancient tribes lived and what we can learn from them.
Yeah.
And, you know, what we can learn from them. So I think that's important.
Absolutely.
And I think your art goes very much in line with that.
Okay, so that's sorry, Shanti, fantastic. Yeah, do you want to carry on? Sorry.
No, I was just
That was-
saying about
that was
the, you know, the ancient cultures, the law of the land, and you know how a lot of the ancient tribes are now being resurrected in the different parts of the world that are bringing forth the ancient knowledge. You know, and you know, I've always said it doesn't. I don't believe we expect to go back and live back in mud huts and things anymore. But you know, what we really need to do is go back to the ways of doing things that in the way that the ancient people did. Respecting, connecting with the earth, growing your own food. As you say, you know, using recycled goods, where you're working in harmony with nature as opposed to plastic and metal and junk and cardboard food. You know, it's not doing us
Well,
any good.
I use metal, but old bits of metal that are going to get thrown out. So usually it's rusty metal. So forgive me for saying, but I've got a real, quite an unhealthy lust for rust.
Yeah, but you're a bit of a weirdo anyway, so don't worry, we know about
I
you.
am. I love being a weirdo. I love being an individual. I tell you what, it's to me, and it took me many years to jump out of the pack every now and again. I love the pack. I love being part of the pack. But tell you what, I'm just as happy to jump out of the pack and go, look at me, I'm strange. And to me, that's just makes me, I suppose, hopefully interesting to others. But it comes with confidence, you know, and being.
Well, it makes you interesting to yourself, so that's important.
Yes, for sure.
Makes your life interesting.
It adds to my life. So, you know, having come from an institution, being in boarding school, being bullied because of the language I spoke, whatever you want to call it, and then going into the military and fighting a war that was absolutely pointless. Well, luckily I didn't go to the actual war, but I was training for it. Our brother did. And then, you know, finally getting to a point where you coming out of your shell, and fortunately, you know, wisdom is a wonderful thing. And as you get wiser and a couple of wrinkles further, you actually, Josh, what's happening? Sorry, he's moving around there. You then kind of get to a point where you just are quite happy to be different to others. And I love it. I think it's just wonderful. So, yeah. So what I wanted to also add to was the idea of all that behind the scenes stuff, you could say, just doing the right thing for the right reasons and doing, you know, going for a swim. And by the way, I've committed to having a winter swim at least once a week. So it's brutal, but yeah, when it's 10 degrees outside and it's about the same in the water, you just plunge in, and when the skin on your head shrinks, you know it's cold. So I go for a swim, but at the same time, I pick up a handful of litter. You know, I just come back with a small bag full of rubbish, and I just chuck it in the nearest bin, and you know it ends up in landfill, but at least it's being removed off the beautiful beaches. So simple little things like that, just an all-encompassing and something I call integration, where you're integrating. Like now I'm integrating, I've got my beautiful son with me, and we're at the studio, and he's drawing and I'm doing, you know, a few little bits and pieces. I'm sort of between projects at the moment. So I'm going to be making a cockatoo like that one, but massive ones, 1.1 meters long. So they're going to be huge ones. They're going to a local winery nearby. So that's what I'm busy collecting materials for, and I'm you know, finding old fence posts, because I'm going to basically the old fence posts that have fallen over and lying in the bush. I'm using those to make the bodies from. So instead of using a tiny piece of timber like that, it's a massive thing you can only just pick up. So yeah, yeah, so that is just that whole start of things, which is kind of, as I say, the behind the scenes stuff, which is just doing the right thing. And then you go to the next point where you're taking that material that would have been just lay there and rotted, eventually rusted away or rotted away, and turn it into something that others really do love, that actually they really want. And I suppose you could say desirable. To me, that's just a cherry on the top. To see someone's pleasure and I suppose you could say their excitement or enjoyment of what I'm producing just does it for me. I love that. So I love the complete quiet, doing the right thing stuff, all the way through to the, you know, drinking champagne with the rich and famous. I can do it all. So but I just love seeing that joy in people when I produce an artwork. So people say, well, what's your greatest joy as an artist? And that is it, is all of that stuff put together. But the pinnacle of seeing someone's joy when they actually take possession or just see one of my works, when you really see someone actually liking it, to me, that's tops. I love that.
Absolutely.
So,
It really is. It really is. It's very satisfying seeing that.
what I can do, I've got 3 essential pieces I can show you now. I want to show you quite a contemporary, almost an abstract piece. And I'll just show you that briefly, and I'll just talk about the components, and then I'll show you the couple of pieces behind me as well. So I'll go and get the abstract one. It's just over here, so I'll be 1 second. All right, so this here is a piece I call Signal. So if you see the whole piece, I'll just do a little bit of a spin around of that piece. It's very much an abstract piece, and the whole thing is constructed from old rusty bits. There's an old bolt that's rusted away there, for example, and I've taken the 2 bolts that are really, these are true vintage pieces. They would have been 3 times as thick, and they've rusted away, and I've now welded them together to form this sculpture. And it's kind of a weirdly medieval concept, I suppose you could say, a little bit like a castle, like the sides of a castle, you know, that inaccessible part of a castle that you would have got to in Middle Eastern Europe or whatever. I didn't really think about what I was going to do in the piece. All I wanted to do was put together the pieces. This here is the negative space from a top of a leaf that I cut out for a previous sculpture. So that would have been a leaf that went to another sculpture, and that got sold at an exhibition for 4 or 5 years ago. So this is a piece I call Signal, and that's kind of the flag, I suppose, of your, and I almost come up with that later on after I constructed the piece. I wanted to make this sort of tall or sort of a stand-up piece like this, and it's turned out to be almost the mast of a ship or something like that as well.
You? How do you get an idea? What inspires you with that? For example, I mean, I'm looking at that and I'm sitting here and I don't have the mind of an artist like that. I'm a writer, I'm a creator. My creativity lies in other areas. So I'm wondering, when you see a few rusty nails and a few pieces of metal and a bit of leftover that and this, what inspires you to get the idea to create that?
Okay, so it's the natural LSD within me. Seriously, a lot of these abstract pieces. Seriously, and that's when I run. That's what I get. I get that euphoria from exercising. I just love it. I absolutely enjoy it. So I just find my creativity when it comes to the abstract pieces. I do my main focus at the moment is the I suppose the nature-based birds and fish and so on. But I do love the abstract pieces too. So the abstract pieces have an incredible freedom. So that piece, I just had a whole lot of components, and I let the components talk to me. So really, when people say, "Oh, I'll let the piece talk to me," it's true. It really is true. I did not know what that piece is going to look like. And I tell you what, you have a lot of fails, you have a lot of false starts, you have a lot of failed pieces as a result of doing that. But the process is is the freedom you receive from that process is just quite incredible. I absolutely love it. So the conceptual, let's call it, I suppose you could say the real contemporary and abstract pieces are not well planned on my part. Generally not. Some are really focused on and draw out beforehand. Like that piece, I will let the materials talk to me. So I've got a lot of pieces that you start with one piece, you know that that's going to go into a sculpture, and you use that piece and you build on it. That's really just building on shapes. I love the combination of positive and negative space and so on. So that, to describe and explain that to you, that's definitely my free, in process, free pieces. The stuff behind me is much more planned out. So I'll bring forward the this one here. This is a kind of a it's kind of an angelic piece, but it's also got that sort of metaphor of human ability, I suppose you could say. The ability for us to pretty much, for us to fly, in inverted commas, is what I love to do. And that's 100% planned and recycled. And those are the components. And even the finish, I actually rust the piece off and I put sand on the surface of the metal and rust it out in with some acid. And then the rust actually engulfs some of that sand, microscopic bits of sand, and holds onto it. And you get that shark skin sort of rough type of finish on there. So that's that piece there. That'll get polished up or get oiled up eventually and get put onto a wooden base and displayed in a gallery or at an exhibition of some kind. Okay, that's that piece.
So what
there.
metal is that you use? Where did that
That's
metal
just
come
mild
from?
seal.
That
That's
you use
just
for the
scrap.
angel.
Just offcuts, mainly offcuts, but it's all sorts of bits and pieces. Really, it's there's no real. It's really plate steel that's been offcut. That piece is almost entirely made from offcuts. And then this here is a cockatoo. So they're very popular, very sort of well-known bird in this region. That's a black cockatoo. So if you just look up black cockatoo, you'll see there are many different forms of them. This is a white-tailed black cockatoo. There's probably hundreds of subspecies of black cockatoo in Australia. The head is really just a cutout. So you look there, it's just a flat piece of steel. So I've got the shape. So for me, these pieces, coming from a sculptor that's produced full realism, where if I did a sculpture of a horse, for example, every single vein, every fold in the skin, every, detail would really be in the piece. I've come from that to this, next to no detail, but the form, the shape, from a distance, it's got to look like a cockatoo. So that's really where I've got to. The wings, the bend in the wing, the way the wing tips bend when a bird flies. I look at all those details. I look at all the natural sort of way this bird would fly like this in its wings. If you looked at this bird straight on or from straight behind, you'd see that's in a split second of its flight, that's what the wings would look like. So that's what I study, and I make sure that the sculpture looks like that from a distance. So if I see them on the horizon flying in the sky, and there's a whole group of them and they screech as they fly, they're really noisy and they're really beautiful. So the rod is a piece of Rio bar, the reinforcing bar they use in concrete for your driveway. That mesh they put inside the concrete, that's a piece of that. And the reason I've gone white with that is when you have this bird up against a white wall, the bird will be in suspension. So the bird will sit like it's flying on its own. So this will almost blend in with a wall. That's the idea of the rods. I don't want that to be seen. I want that to be seen. And then the base comes from the top of an old fence post. That's a piece of jarrah. It's a type of gum tree, very popular tree in the area. That's kind of what most people make their firewood from. They don't have the wood that you have in Africa for making fires. This is jarrah. It's at the type of gum. And that particular piece comes from the farm of Tim Connolly. Tim Connolly was an Irish immigrant who came out in the mid 1800s to the region. He worked for the Bussell family. They were the first big settlement family in the region. And then, so the Bussell family were the first original big farmers in the region. and he and someone else discovered Lake Cave. Lake Cave is now one of the biggest tourist caves in the region. So if you look up Lake Cave, Margaret River, you'll find it's absolutely stunning cave. I used to work there for 7 years as well. So there's a link there for me. So that fence post comes from his farm. He established a farm in 1910. So I have a client who now owns the farm that he owned, and they gave me some of their fence posts. So a lot of my sculptures, like the big cockatoos I said I'm making, I've already made a set of them, and they come from that farm. And I then basically was commissioned to do a set of 3 big oversized, what I call Goliath cockatoos. So there's that story behind that. So the top of the piece that's been cut off is now the base for the next sculpture. So once again, reuse, don't abuse, of course. And just turn it into something that I think is, and I think that piece balances nicely. I like the fact that that base comes out at a bit of an angle, then the rod comes out and it's kind of quite subtle, and then the bird's got to sit in suspension. That bird must look like it's flying in a split second in time. I want that bird to be as it should be in nature. Okay, I hope that explains things well enough for you to this point.
It's amazing. It's really amazing.
Wow. Absolutely
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you, Orne.
True
Yes,
spirit of the artist. That is really beautiful, Al. Thank you for that. Wow.
Thank you so much.
So thank you, Al, very, very, very much for joining us again for today. I love listening about that. Look forward to having you on again in the future, with some more of your stuff and what you're doing and all of that. That would be really great. I love to follow. You know me. I'm your greatest fan. To watch your stuff. So we're going to put your links
so
down
much.
in the description.
And are yours.
Yeah.
Remember, I got to tell your fans this, that time you were doing a yoga headstand, and what did I say? You're awesome upside down or right side up. You are.
Yeah,
You're amazing.
You're
You're incredible.
Thank you, Al.
You've got, and you are definitely a unique character in the best possible way. You've got so much to offer the world, and thank you for being real. I tell you what, I love it.
That's
Wonderful. So, and once again, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate both of you are incredible people. I just love talking about, about this. I love spreading the word of us all doing the right thing. And if I can influence at least 1 or 2 people, there's people like David Attenborough who can really help us conserve and protect our beautiful environment. But if I can do that for 1 or 2 people, I've done my job. I'm happy. So I'll just keep going. And if I can earn a living from it, even better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's love what you do and do what you love, and everything else follows suit, And I think that's really, really clear. And I think it's so beautiful because, in the old days, so many artists only became famous after they exited the planet, And what I'm seeing more and more now is there are some brilliant artists and really talented people like yourself. And you are experiencing the fruits of your labor in the same life. So it's really nice to see.
Yeah,
absolutely. Our grandmother, what a beautiful painter. She never sold a piece of work, and she painted so beautifully. Our mother's mother, Carmen von Bieler.
Our grandmother was she was the youngest art student to be accepted into Rhodes University in South Africa. She was 15, and she was an art student at Rhodes University. Wonderful. So it's amazing. I mean, she was an incredible artist. I mean, mum was an incredible artist, still is. Yeah. Anita, Marina. No, not me. I can't even draw a stick figure. I don't know where I came from in this family, seriously.
Well, you've got your own skills, haven't you? Clearly.
My art lies in other areas.
Your creativity lies in the unseen.
Exactly. You're not a visual artist. You're the opposite of a visual artist.
I'm a non-visual artist. Okay.
Uh,
Oh, guys, thank you so much. It's so
Okay.
good to see you again. Al.
Thank you
We'll
so
have you
much.
back
Come
very
back, Josh.
soon.
Thank you
Love
so much.
seeing your
We'll see you guys soon.
See ya.
See you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Yeah, bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.